nobody's heard what I had to say yet, so it's helpful. I have some notes and I rarely use them, but I'm not a public speaker. And like Coach alluded to, I've worked hard. I never did anything really spectacular, but I showed up and I listened. And I listened to my father and all of his lessons. And my wife's a coach, my grandfather was a coach. And I can see a lot of faces here today are a lot different than the children that were here yesterday. And I can probably assume that it's much easier to convince them that I actually know what I'm talking about. But I can assure you I would much rather hear from a lot of the people in this room. There's a lot of Hall of Fame people from Hebron. And the experiences I had here and the people I met has made all the difference in my life. You know, like Robert Frost said, you know, there is two roads diverge in the wood, and I took the one less traveled by. And I feel like consistently over the course of my life, I've listened and I've learned and I've observed, and I've tried to listen to my mentors and my teachers. And even here at Hebron, I mean, when I came here, I came with my best friend Jim Kelly, and we were surrounded by teachers and mentors and people that were invested in us. And quite literally, we were like surrounded by them, and we couldn't escape. And I think OB was the only one that successfully eluded all of the Hebron stuff. But I have a daughter. I have 3 daughters, and they started playing piano this year, and just for a few short weeks. And my oldest, she's 8. She thinks she's the best. She thinks she's brilliant, and she is. But Juhi was pretty impressive, and I almost, if my daughter could ever play the piano like that, I mean, it would bring a tear in my eye. And I think that the culture here at Hebron, it's very enriching. And I think it's a lot about family, and it's about community, and it's about, I think as we get older, I think we become less consumed with the perception people have of us. We become more invested in the difference we can make in other people's lives, to empower them, to improve their lives, to protect them. I've done a lot of work with the NFL Players Association to address brain trauma, but that's because I was on a health and safety committee, and I just decided I couldn't afford to turn a blind eye to the health and safety and welfare of the players that I was commissioned to represent. And the most fundamental Christian value is to heal the sick and don't let people suffer needlessly. And I felt like that was my role, and it wasn't very popular to tell people, especially because I was such an old school, hard worker, played through every concussion. It was really hard because I became somewhat of a hypocrite to tell people how to protect themselves and manage their injuries properly. But I think it was the right thing to do, and but popularity isn't leadership. And I think Hebron gave me the confidence to be myself, to recognize that it's okay to be yourself and still find a place in the world and still have meaning in your life. And I felt always invested, and I had that confidence and that source of strength from the people here. People like Jack Lyden, and our coaches, and Coach Curtis, and Mike Toole, and Dave Gagnon, who was incredibly invested in us as players. And his son is getting married today. So Jim and I are planning on giving him a call, and I've been texting with Brandon. But he was a 4-year-old little kid that used to run around here, and it was a family atmosphere. And I always told my wife that I wanted to raise my kids in an environment, and this was always a template that I used when I used to discuss it. Now we're in Princeton, and my daughters are taking piano. Yes, they're still playing hockey, and I can't convince the coach to put them on the football team. They're too young. But I look around the room and I see so many coaches and teachers and people that have dedicated their lives to impacting the lives of others in a profound way. And I'm reminded as I hear about Coach Harris, Mr. McMillan, and a lot of the people that have been recognized here today. I feel like people have dedicated their lives to developing youth athletes, and sport was intended to enrich the lives of student athletes, and that's what Hebron is all about. And I look around this room, and I'm just so impressed and honored and humbled to be recognized with the type of people that were recognized today. So my congratulations. I did swim in one meet with Will Abar, and Will's brought his son Willie here today. And I won race because I thought, my father was a fisherman, And he said we needed to learn how to swim as kids, so he basically shoved us onto the swim team. But I thought I got killed. I would have bet everything that I would have shattered the record. As I talk about coaches, I think about when I came here to Hebron, I was so impressionable as a young kid, and I remember reading and listening to my coaches and the people that cared about me. And I remember a quote from a coach that coached me in NFL Europe, and he said, after he was fired and he spent a year coaching and teaching some underprivileged, at-risk, really delinquents that were hard to get to. He said, after a year of trying to get to them, he said, kids don't care. He finally realized that kids don't care how much you know until they know how much you care. And that meant a lot to me. And I think that's kind of how I felt when I came here. And Lou Holtz said that the only thing that will change where you are today and where you'll be in 5 years are the people you meet and the books you read. And I read a lot of books at Brown and on the beach in Barcelona during the daytime. But the people I've met have made all the difference in my life, and I think the people here at Hebron made such an impact on me that it's no coincidence that I feel all the things I think about how the perspective of sport, how it should fit in your life with balance and family and community. It's not a coincidence that Hebron put that in me. And I'm just eternally grateful and very humbled that I was a part of this community, because I come back and I remember the time in my life, and I think all of us do, that it was, it's very refreshing, because that's how sport should be. There should be balance. There should be, playing the piano and studying and learning and growing and evolving and adapting as people, and to do that together with others. And so, like I said, my wife is a coach. Now, my father's grandfather was a coach, legendary coach at East Bridgewater. And, the people, I say this because I want to talk a little bit about my parents and my Mr. Kelly, who's here with his son Jim. I think, parents become so invested in their kids and their lives, they want to give them a better life. And my father and Jim's father had the ability to send us here when literally they sent us here too, just like Mr. Frechette said. And I don't want to get too far into what Jim and I did in Marshall, because I'm sure there's still some investigations of people looking for us. That year, made a big deal for both Jim and I. We came here, and my father being a longshoreman and Jim's dad being a merchant marine, they worked very hard to give their kids a better life and to teach us lessons. And a lot of those times they had to basically beat the lessons into us. I don't want to get you in trouble, but when I came here, Jim was kind of my partner in crime, and as a kid, we used to play break through and conquer in the snow, and we'd fight each other every day, kick each other out of the house, and then we would have this one-on-one basketball game every day that we would win or lose, and I'm convinced I won more, and I hold the championship, and I have the belt, and he thinks he has the championship, and he was actually talking about it last night. I'm thinking, there's no way you have the championship. And he basically thinks it's because of my concussions now that I can't play. So, and he went, but I actually, if you don't mind, Jim, I'd like you to come up here for a second, because I have something that I want to give to you. Can you please come over? Humor me, please. He's in a chapel for once. Jim was married this past year to a beautiful girl named Jen, and I think, I know this is probably a little bit uncomfortable for him, but a lot of people dedicate their entire lives to different sport and people and friends, and sometimes they don't have anything tangible to show for it. And I think it's Mr. Mulholland's Opus, where he spends his entire life. He never has that symphony, but he invested in other people And he realizes that the thing that's really meaningful in his life is the impact he's had on other people. And Jim literally trained me as a kid. He convinced me to come on and play football. He pretty much beat me up every time we practiced. He was the guy I sought out as the best competition, so we practiced here at Hebron. And he's in every picture you see of me at Hebron, he's the one in front of me blocking. So he probably added a lot of years to my career as well. But I always promised him that if I ever made it to the Pro Bowl, I would buy him a Jeep. And I'm not giving him a Jeep. I want to give Jim something that's very dear to me, that symbolizes a lot of effort and hard work that I put into my career, and the contribution he's made to my life as a friend. And I think friends are the people that can kind of, see through your act, but they still enjoy the show. And Jim has been one of my most loyal friends. He's been a great leader on the Hebron team that we played for, and I just wanted to present him with this small token of my appreciation. This is the NFC Championship ring from the Arizona Cardinals. He lives in Arizona, so I'll make sure that he has the box to go along with it, so he can present it in his house. I really appreciate it. Good job. Congratulations. I'm sorry that everybody's sitting here and I hijacked the convocation. I'd like to thank the trustees. I'd like to thank anyone that voted for me for the induction. And I'd like to thank the people that really made a difference in my life here and continue to make a difference in all the students' lives, all the teachers that sacrifice. They're so selfless, and they sacrifice so much time to invest in other kids and create an environment that kids can be successful and go on and catapult their lives into opening opportunities. And I just want to thank Mr. King for his tireless commitment, and Reeve and all the trustees that understand what it means to be a Hebron student and a Hebron alum. And I'd like to thank my team in that year, because every player, I looked at the highlight tape last night, and as much as I'd like to think that I was like the answer and I was the guy that year, like I saw the defensive highlight tape and everybody just was hitting the snot out of the other teams. They were really intimidated, and Coach Toole, with all his blitzes and all the things that they were so innovative. And we had a 190-pound defensive lineman named Psycho, who, while I went to school here, he was convinced that my twin sister was completely identical. Everything. Like the long hair, the female characteristics, and he was dying to meet her, couldn't get over it. But the personalities, and Coach Gagnon, and how much time he spent with us, it's such a community, it was such a team effort, and I think by definition, you have a team. If you want to have a team or form a team, you have to have some sense of true humility to be able to put the team's needs ahead of your own. And I learned that here, and I carried that throughout my career, and it helped me every step of the way. And before I go, I just wanted to, because today is a day of celebrating our athletes and our coaches and our communities, and we have games, and we're in the chapel, I wanted to kind of, read a pregame speech for life. And I did plagiarize this, so I do have to read it. It's from Philippians 2, 1-7. It says, if you have any encouragement from being united with Christ, if any comfort from his love, if any fellowship with the Spirit, if any tenderness and compassion, then make my joy complete by being like-minded, having the same love, being one in spirit and purpose. Do nothing out of selfish ambition or vain conceit, but in humility consider others better than yourselves. Each of you should look not only to your own interests, but the interests of others. Your attitude should be the same as that of Christ Jesus, who, being in very nature of God, did not consider equality with God something to be grasped, but made himself nothing, taking the very nature of a servant, being made in human likeness.